Welcome back to the Social Boost Lab podcast for our second episode. This time we're diving into a topic that's on everyone's minds, AI and its impact on voice search and SEO.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how fast things are changing in the digital world, right? Like we're going from typing stuff into a search bar to just straight up talking to our devices.
Totally. And that shift, it's got to be huge for anyone who, wants to be found online, like businesses and stuff.
For sure. So I guess we should start by breaking down like what exactly makes voice search different from traditional SEO. At the end of the day, it's all about searching for information, right?
Right. But I guess the way we search is kind of different, isn't it?
Exactly. Think about it. When you type something into Google, you usually use like short keywords, but when you talk, it's more natural, more conversational, like you're asking a friend for a recommendation or something.
Okay, I see. So like instead of just searching for best Italian restaurant, I might say something like, "Hey Siri, find me a good Italian place near me that's open late."
Exactly. And that's where AI comes in, specifically something called natural language processing or NLP. Basically, it's what helps search engines understand like all the little nuances of how we talk.
Oh yeah. I remember reading about Google's BERT and how it can understand the context of words in a sentence. It's almost like it can read between the lines.
Totally. BERT is a huge deal in AI. It really helps Google get what you're actually looking for, not just the individual words you're using.
So what you're saying is businesses need to start thinking about these longer, more conversational keywords.
Absolutely. It's not just about ranking for something like pizza delivery anymore. It's about what's the best pizza place near me that delivers after 10 p.m.
That makes a lot of sense. So for our listeners, if they aren't optimizing for these conversational keywords, they could be missing out on a ton of traffic.
Exactly. Voice search is only going to become more common, and those who adapt their SEO strategies are going to be the ones who benefit.
Got it. So we've talked about conversational keywords, but what else should our listeners keep in mind when it comes to voice search optimization?
Well, another big one is featured snippets. You know that little box at the top of the search results that gives you a direct answer to your question?
Oh yeah, those are super helpful.
Right. And voice assistants often pull answers straight from those featured snippets. So if you can get your content featured there, you're basically becoming the go-to source for that specific question.
Okay, so how do we get our content into those coveted featured snippets?
The key is to create content that directly answers common questions in a clear, concise way. Think like FAQ style, but make it super engaging and informative.
I've also heard that Google's looking for content that has like what they call EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness.
Exactly. Google wants to give its users the most accurate and reliable information possible. So your content has to be well-researched, well-written, and come from a source people actually trust.
And that actually ties into something you mentioned earlier, local SEO, right? A ton of voice searches are people looking for businesses or services near them.
For sure, a huge chunk of voice searches have local intent. People asking things like, "Where's the nearest coffee shop?" Or, "Find me a mechanic that's open on Sundays."
So if you're a business owner, you got to make sure your Google My Business listing is on point, right? Like up to date and accurate.
Absolutely. Your business name, address, phone number, hours of operation, all of that needs to be consistent across every platform.
And this is where things can get a bit technical, right? There's something called schema markup.
Yeah, schema markup basically helps search engines understand what your content is actually about. It's like adding little labels to your website's code that say, hey, this is a product, or this is a recipe, or this is a local business.
So it's like giving the search engines a cheat sheet so they can better understand and categorize our content.
Precisely. The more info you can give about your content through schema markup, the better chance it has of showing up in those all-important voice search results, especially those featured snippets we talked about.
Okay, schema markup, definitely something to look into.
And there are actually some cool AI-powered tools that can help with this whole process, as well as other aspects of voice search optimization.
Like what?
Well, there's Dialogflow. It was developed by Google, and it helps you create those conversational agents like chatbots that you can add to your website. Then you've got SEMrush, which is a big SEO platform that gives you great voice search analytics and keyword research capabilities. And BrightEdge, which uses AI to recommend specific ways to optimize your website content for voice search.
Wow, so many tools to explore. It sounds like AI is completely changing the SEO game.
It really is. It helps us understand what users want, personalize search results, and make more engaging and valuable content. And honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Totally. AI is evolving at an incredible pace. Makes you wonder what the future holds for voice search and SEO.
Definitely. But before we get ahead of ourselves, it's important to remember that even though AI is awesome, it's not perfect. There are still some challenges to consider.
You're right. AI is a powerful tool, but it's not a magic bullet. So what are some of the things we need to watch out for?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is accuracy. AI-generated responses can sometimes have misinformation or even be biased.
That's kind of scary, to be honest. Imagine getting an answer from your voice assistant that's just plain wrong.
Yeah.
It can have some serious consequences, especially if you're relying on that information to make important decisions.
Exactly. And this is something that developers and researchers are working really hard on. They're trying to create algorithms that are better at filtering out misinformation and providing users with the most accurate and reliable information possible.
So accuracy is one issue. What else?
Another potential challenge is the impact on web traffic. Think about it. If your voice assistant just gives you the answer straight up, you might not even need to go to a website.
That's a great point. That could be a big problem for businesses that rely on website traffic for their income.
Exactly. And that's why businesses need to start brainstorming new ways to engage users and adapt to this new reality.
So how can businesses adapt to this shift towards voice search and AI? Any tips for our listeners?
The most important thing is to embrace AI as a tool for optimization. That means understanding how AI is changing the way people search for information and adapting your strategies accordingly.
So basically, staying informed and being adaptable is key.
Exactly. And they need to focus on creating high-quality content that answers users' questions clearly and concisely. Remember, AI is getting smarter all the time, so you can't just stuff your content with keywords and hope for the best.
Content is still king, even in the age of AI.
Absolutely. And don't forget about those AI-powered tools we talked about earlier. They can be super helpful for analyzing your website, finding areas for improvement, and optimizing your content for voice search.
So it sounds like the takeaway here is to work with AI, not against it.
You got it. AI is here to stay, and it's only going to get more advanced and integrated into our lives. The best thing we can do is learn how to use it to our advantage.
Well said. We've covered a lot today. We talked about the rise of voice search, the role of AI, and the importance of adapting our SEO strategies to this new world.
Yeah, we've touched on some of the challenges that come with AI too, like the potential for misinformation and the impact on web traffic. But overall, the message is clear. AI is a powerful tool that can help us improve our online presence and connect with our audience in a more meaningful way.
And the key is to stay informed, stay adaptable, and never stop learning. Because the world of AI is constantly evolving, and we need to evolve with it if we want to stay ahead of the game.
Speaking of staying ahead of the game, I think it's time we dig into some more tactical strategies for optimizing content for voice search.
Okay, sounds good. But first, we want to hear from you, our listeners. What are your thoughts on the future of voice search? What excites you? What worries you? Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram for more tips and resources.
We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so we talked about conversational keywords and those featured snippets, but what are some other things our listeners can do right now to make sure they show up in voice search?
I feel like a lot of people get kind of freaked out by all the technical stuff in SEO, especially when you start talking about schema markup and all that.
Yeah, schema can seem a little intimidating at first, but it's honestly not that complicated once you get the hang of it. And the payoff can be huge. By adding schema to your website, you're basically giving search engines this clear picture of what your content is all about, which makes it way more likely to show up in the right voice search results.
Okay, so let's break it down for our listeners. What are some easy ways to get started with schema markup?
Well, the first thing is to figure out what kind of content you have. Is it a product, a service, a blog post, a recipe? Once you know what you're dealing with, you can choose the right schema vocabulary, I guess, to mark it up.
And there are tools out there to help with this, right?
Totally. Google has this thing called the Structured Data Markup Helper. It's super useful. It walks you through the whole process step by step and even generates the code for you.
That sounds awesome. So let's say I own a restaurant. What kind of schema markup would be best for me?
If you're a restaurant, you definitely want to use the restaurant schema. It lets you add all the important details, like your type of food, price range, hours, even your menu items.
Got it. So all that information would then show up in voice search results when someone asks their smart speaker something like, find me a good Italian restaurant near me that's open late.
Exactly. Using schema markup makes it super easy for search engines to connect your restaurant with those specific voice search requests.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got schema, but what are some other technical things we can do to optimize for voice search?
Page speed is another big one. Voice search tends to favor websites that load quickly, especially on mobile devices.
Right, because people want answers like right away when they're using voice search.
For sure. If your website takes forever to load, people are going to bounce and go to the next result.
So how can we make our websites load faster?
There are a bunch of things you can do. Optimizing your images, minimizing your code, using a CDN, stuff like that.
And I'm guessing these are all things people can do with the help of a web developer or maybe by using some of those website optimization tools you find online.
Yep, exactly. And don't forget about mobile optimization. More and more people are using their phones for voice search, so your website has to be responsive and easy to use on smaller screens.
All right, so we've covered conversational keywords, featured snippets, schema markup, page speed, mobile optimization. It seems like there's a lot to keep in mind for voice search SEO.
There is, but don't stress about doing everything at once. Just start with the basics and then gradually add in these strategies as you get more comfortable.
And it's important to remember that AI is always changing, so we got to stay up to date on all the latest trends and best practices.
Totally agree. It's a journey, not a destination.
So true. You know, we've talked a lot about the technical side of things, but I think it's important to remember that at the end of the day, creating great content is still the most important thing.
Absolutely. Content is king, even with AI. But what makes content great for voice search?
Well, it has to be relevant to what people are searching for, right? So understanding their intent and giving them answers that are clear, concise, and helpful.
And don't forget about engagement. Just because someone's using voice search doesn't mean they don't want to be entertained or learn something new.
Exactly. I actually think voice search opens up all these cool possibilities for creating content that's more interactive and engaging. Like imagine podcasts or articles that are specifically designed for listening with cool audio elements and storytelling techniques.
Oh, I love that. We're just starting to see what we can do with voice search. As the technology keeps getting better, I think we'll see even more creative and innovative uses for it when it comes to creating and consuming content.
For sure. So for those of you listening, if you want to learn more about creating super engaging content, be sure to check out our Instagram. We share tons of tips and resources over there. But for now, let's shift gears and talk about the future of voice search.
Okay, cool. So what trends do you see coming up in the world of AI and voice search?
Well, one thing that's really exciting is how much better natural language processing is getting. As AI gets better at understanding how we talk, voice search is going to become even smoother and more intuitive.
Definitely. And I think we'll see even more personalized search results. Like AI could use your preferences and past searches to give you results that are tailored just for you.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
It's like having a personal assistant who knows you inside and out and can predict what you're looking for.
Exactly. And with all these smart devices popping up, I think we'll see voice search built into even more things. Like imagine controlling your whole house with just your voice, from setting the temperature to ordering groceries.
The possibilities are mind-blowing. But while we're thinking about the future, it's important to remember that AI is still pretty new, and there are some ethical things we need to consider.
You're right. As AI gets more powerful and more common, it's super important to have guidelines and regulations to make sure it's used responsibly and ethically.
Totally agree. We need to be aware of potential problems like bias, discrimination, and privacy issues.
And we need to be having open and honest conversations about these things to make sure that AI is used for good and benefits everyone.
Well said. This has been such a thought-provoking conversation about AI's impact on voice search and SEO. We've covered a lot, from the technical stuff to the ethical considerations of this rapidly changing technology.
And we've only just scratched the surface. But before we wrap up, we want to hear from you, our listeners. What are your thoughts on the future of voice search? What gets you excited? What are you worried about? Let us know in the comments down below.
It's kind of wild to think how much things have changed, you know? It wasn't that long ago that voice search was this, futuristic thing. Now it's just, part of everyday life.
I know, right? And as AI keeps getting smarter, voice search is only going to get more, powerful and intuitive. Have you seen those Google AI overviews? They give you these summaries of complex topics right in the search results.
Oh, yeah, those are pretty cool. It's like having your own research assistant, right?
Yeah.
Just ask a question and boom, instant overview.
Exactly. And I think that's just a taste of what's coming. AI is going to be even better at curating and personalizing search results, like cutting through all the clutter and giving users the most relevant and reliable information.
Which is great for users, obviously. But it's got to be a challenge for businesses and content creators to keep up.
For sure. It's not enough to just like throw content out there and hope people find it. You got to understand how AI is reading those search queries and what it's using to rank results.
So having a good SEO strategy is more important than ever.
Absolutely. And that strategy needs to be flexible because AI is constantly changing. What works today might not work tomorrow.
So we got to stay informed and be willing to experiment and try new things.
Exactly. The people who succeed in the age of AI are going to be the ones who can adapt and are always learning.
And that's kind of what we're all about here at Social Boost Lab, right? Helping our listeners navigate this crazy digital marketing world and stay ahead of the game.
For sure. We're always here to answer questions and offer some guidance. So if you're feeling a little lost with all this AI and voice search stuff, don't hesitate to reach out. We're all in this together.
And remember, you can always connect with us on Instagram for even more tips and resources to help you boost your online presence. So what are some final thoughts we can leave our listeners with as we wrap up this episode?
I think the biggest takeaway is that AI is a powerful tool, but it's not something to be afraid of. By understanding how AI works and adapting our strategies, we can actually use it to our advantage.
So, to all our listeners out there, embrace the power of AI, and let's ride this wave of innovation together. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Social Boost Lab podcast.